Welcome to the Miracle Mansion podcast. My name is Markkus. I'm Head of Treatment Counselling at Broadway Lodge. And I have, who do I have here? Delightful in pink.
Katie.
Welcome, Katie.
Thank you.
So, listen, everybody, I need to tell you how this podcast came about. So, Sunday, I'm driving in Weston-super-Mare, as I do sometimes. I got two ex-clients with me. We're going to clear a house, this old lady's house, just giving her a hand. She's a client of mine. And I drive past. I look and I see Katie and I'm like, hey, I ain't seen Katie in ages. Brake, window down. Oi, Katie. When was that? Was that last Sunday?
Sunday before, yeah.
Yeah, was that Sunday before? And a week later, we're doing a podcast together. That's how I like it. See, everybody who comes through Broadway Lodge at the drop of a hat will come and have a chat. So I just like the impromptu of it. How are you anyway, lovely? How are you?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. Slightly nervous, but it's okay. I'll go with that. Okay. Thank you for asking me. And it's always my pleasure to come back and help you out, help Broadway out in any way by giving back.
Cool. Right, so you and I, we're just going to have a conversation and it will go quite easy. So we're just going to talk about your life and then obviously addiction, coming to Broadway, what you did here and then where you went off to and what you've been doing since.
Okay.
And what life looks like for you right now. So just tell me, so where you from? Where'd you come from? Tell me about addiction. Tell me about a life. Tell me about, just tell me.
Okay,
Cool.
so did you mean literally where I come from or?
You can tell me whatever
you
can tell me where you come from. Well, I know it's Gloucester, but you can tell me where you come from.
Yeah, I come from Gloucester. But I struggled from quite a young age, really. Like looking back, I was never really happy. It's really sad now when I look back at myself as that little girl.
What do you mean you was never really happy? What do you mean?
Just within myself. Obviously, with awareness that I've gained and things I've learned and the reading I've done, I can say that, I didn't feel safe in my household. Okay. It was quite chaotic and I was quite sensitive and I sought escape from quite a young age. I mean, when I was little, it was art, it was writing. But yeah, growing up, I wasn't happy in myself. I had quite a bad self-image as well.
Okay.
And things went on, life outside the house wasn't always good either. And obviously life in the house could be, like I say, chaotic. So yeah, I just sought escape through different means. And as I got that bit older, that turned to looking to experiment with drugs and alcohol.
So when you say life outside the house wasn't good, what do you mean?
So I got bullied quite a bit. Okay. At school and kind of in the area I lived in as well.
Okay.
There was different bullying on and off. And I always just wanted to be part of. And I always wanted to, no matter, whenever I got knocked down or rejected or humiliated, I was just always wanted to get back up and be like, I wanted them to like me. I wanted to be part of again. So it's quite exhausting, really.
And how long did that go on?
Well, from a child and my teenage years, really. Don't get me wrong, there were good times and I did have some good friendship groups but yeah, it was kind of a theme for me.
Really?
Yeah.
And then you're saying at home was it quite challenging as well?
Yeah, my mum was mainly a single mum, but she did have a couple of long-term partners because my mum and dad divorced when I was small.
Okay.
So mum had a really high-pressure job. She worked 2 jobs, actually. She was a single mum. She had like her own stuff that, as we all do as humans. And yeah, she struggled and her outlet would be she'd go out and drink. My mum wasn't an alcoholic, but I think her drinking could be problematic. But that was what she sort of did after, when work was done.
That's how she wound down, etc. From the pressure of her job, etc.
Exactly.
Okay,
and both the long-term relationships she had, that involved, they would go out and drink and then there would be a lot of arguing and there would be some violence. So that was all,
And did you witness any of that?
So I didn't actually witness any violence, but I did hear stuff and there was a lot of like destructiveness as well and things getting smashed and a lot of shouting and
Cool. So that must have been quite fearful then.
Definitely, yeah. I mean, when I look back, I can say, yeah, it was obviously really, I was anxious and fearful from a young age, but I wouldn't have known that language at the time.
Yeah. Okay. So how did the drugs get in? And do you know what? It's really surprising because I haven't seen you in such a long time, and I see you now, and obviously I know you as when you came into treatment, and I know you now. And to hear you say that, I'm not going to lie, to hear you say that you were bullied for such a long time, I felt really sad about it. It was like, because I don't know that of you. I didn't know that of you. And it just felt like, well, who would want to do that?
It's just kids, isn't it? It's just one of those things.
Oh, man, wow. Anyway.
So, yeah, as I was saying, with the escape thing, it got to I read a lot. I read a hell of a lot, and I still love reading. But I feel like that was probably my first means of escape.
Right.
And I would read, I like quite dark, but I liked all sorts, but I did like some of the darker stories as well. And I wasn't one of these people, you hear a lot of people say, peer pressure led them into using drugs. That was not my story. I was curious about it. I really was. I was curious about some dark stuff and just, obviously it looked fun, but also there was just this part of me that always was quite drawn to darkness, really. I don't know exactly what that's all about, but yeah. So I remember reading a book and reading about, and even this book, it didn't use it, but there was this part of me that just, I don't know. But anyway, so I started experimenting quite young.
How young?
13.
Oh my days.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it just progressed really quickly for me.
What are we talking about?
Okay, so, I mean, the first things I tried were like your weed and your ash, and gas and hairspray, that kind of thing, poppers.
Right, okay.
And even as young as 14, I tried ecstasy and LSD.
Okay. Where does a 13 or 14-year-old in beautiful Gloucester get those things?
So the story for the ecstasy was actually, when I look back now, it's crazy. There were a couple of friends of mine at school that had met these two guys who were, we were 14, they were late 20s. At the time, it was all just like cool. And obviously now, when looking back, they're pedophiles. It's crazy when you actually think of it like that. But so they met these two guys, and there was this shop actually not far from our school in town that sold poppers. So these guys would be going in and they introduced us to poppers. And then the same with the ecstasy. They took ecstasy and they offered, and there was a few of us that did it. I then obviously continued, there were some of my friends that would experiment with even harder stuff. There are a couple of my friends now, and I look back, you'd never think if you met them. But they would just experiment. It was just a really brief thing. But with me, that was it, from really young, actually.
What did that do to you in schooling and stuff? What was that like?
It was like I'd given up on myself with my schooling, because in my primary school, I did go through some really bad bullying there. But I was quite academic. So I was, one of the sort of probably top people in the class kind of thing. I was doing well. And I remember, like, when I took the year 11 exam to go to secondary school, all my family being really proud of me. But I do kind of remember feeling a bit of a pressure as well. But then, and I was really excited to go to, because I went to like an all-girl grammar school. So it was quite
so that's a good school.
Good school. Just not right for me at all.
In what way? Why not? What happened?
So more bullying from a friend of mine, which was devastating, really. Because she was my friend, and that's with friends, with girls, they just know how to hurt you and humiliate you and ostracize you. Because that was my experience. I was already not very confident. I had a lot of self image issues. And that didn't help. And this school, it was posh, There were a lot of, not everyone, but a lot of people sort of came from well-off families and areas, two-parent families. It was not everyone, but that was the general thing. So I just felt...
You was already on the back foot.
I already felt that way, whether that was just my perception or what, but...
well, the reality is that's how you felt, and that's what mattered, isn't it? So,
exactly. And then that didn't help the thing with my friend either. Home life wasn't ideal, so I was just kind of... it was like getting to that school and not being sort of one of the people that is, like in primary school, and I was quite top in sort of class. Yeah, that was a bit overwhelming. Yeah.
Right. So you got to a school and there were a lot of very intelligent people there as well. So you weren't no longer top anymore.
Yeah. Okay. Not that I'm saying I was completely top in my primary school, but I was one of the people that, and there was a lot of expectation on me that to go on and do well. And then, I got, and it just, I kind of just.
It's a different level, isn't it? Yeah. It's a different level.
Teachers took a dislike to me, which I do believe happens. Probably still now a bit, but not to the extent it did then. Mm-hmm. Schools have come on a bit with sort of like emotional care and stuff for students. But I started self-harming in school, like literally in school as well. And they just suspended me. There was no, are you okay? What is, there was no referral, anything like that.
No
it wasn't.
No compassion, no understanding, no
I mean, they did ask me a few questions, but it was more like punitive, the way that they treated me. Mm-hmm. So, yeah. Cool. And it was like, I felt like I didn't fit in, and I kind of gave up on myself, really. And obviously I was starting to go off the rails. So, I didn't really care about my schooling.
Right. So what happened next?
As I said, like my drug use progressed quite quickly. 15, I tried crack and heroin. The next time I tried heroin wouldn't be till I was 18. So, but with the crack, I would kind of on and off take that with guys usually, or some of my friends sometimes. It was more opportunistic, that I wouldn't go out and start buying it. And then it was like the recreational stuff. Mm-hmm. I was always either drinking. I wasn't big into weed, but I would if it was there. If it was there, I'd do it. I'd kind of anything to just get out of my head, try and feel a bit better, and just try and escape from how I felt. So it was more recreational, I think, from the age of like 15 to 17. A lot of ecstasy, a lot of cocaine, a lot of going out and having fun. Mm-hmm. But even within that, very, very quickly, I knew it became problematic. Very quickly, it wasn't fun. I mean, it was fun, but there were times when it got really dark, and I realised, like some of my friends, they'd be quite normal in the week. They were in sixth form. Mm-hmm. I didn't get into sixth form because I didn't do well enough in my exams, which was another bitter disappointment for me. Mm-hmm. And I went to college. But it wasn't what I wanted to do. Yeah, I wanted to do psychology A level, and I went to college and I started health and social care. I loved certain sections of it, and some I didn't like others. And I just wasn't in the right frame of mind, so I just dropped out of college after a few months. Mm-hmm. And whereas my friends were either in sixth form or attending college and doing their jobs, and just partying on the weekend, I would want to use whenever I could. Mm-hmm. So and that's quite young, really, to be like that.
So we're talking really 16 to 18 then, really, aren't we?
Yeah.
Where does somebody 15 get crack cocaine in Gloucester?
So there were a lot of guys in the area, a lot of dealers that you should just drive around in their nice cars. It was all like convertibles, and me and my friends would it's different now, very different, obviously. Mm-hmm. In a way, I think it's better in some ways that kids are in on the technology, as much as I hate it. Mm-hmm. But we were out wandering the streets. We'd say we were sleeping at each other's houses. We just used to go out wandering, and we'd walk up by the bars and, look at the blokes, and we'd just wander up the street in Gloucester. And there were a lot of dealers that used to just, oh, do you want to come in? And they'd give us a bit of drink, and we'd just be driving around in their car listening to music. It was just, I don't know, a thing some of me and my friends did. And then obviously some of them would, I knew some of them would use, and then I just met from being, I think what happened when I was bullied by my friend in secondary school is I went and lost a bit. I went off and I was like, right, okay, so I need to make a bit of a life for myself outside of school. And there was a girl in my area that I started hanging around with. Mm-hmm. And we used to go at the park, and that's when I started meeting boys and meeting a lot of different people from my area. Mm-hmm. So that's when I started making a lot of connections. Right. Okay. And inevitably, you got people that are a bit older and people that are using and experimenting. So I met quite a lot of people, and we'd just meet people about, really. Okay. And I suppose most of my using was done with guys. That was a pattern for me.
And the reason why I ask you it like that is because I think about, and obviously I know of your daughter, and I think about my daughter, and I think, Christ,
I know.
That's why I asked those questions. How does that even happen? And I'm not naive, but, you know, like you, sometimes I do think to myself, whilst I'm not a big fan of the internet and the way that the youth are attached to their phones, sometimes it keeps them indoors
Exactly.
safely and not out there at risk to predatory men and women and vulnerable, you know, and be as vulnerable as they are. Do you know what I mean? Because there's no doubt at that time, you know, despite you were vulnerable. And so, and obviously with everything that was going on at home and everything that happened to you, you just literally ripe for addiction and substance misuse.
Yeah.
So what happened next?
Well, so I ended up getting involved with a guy. He was 10 years older than me. I was 17. It's quite a pivotal point because we got together and he wasn't cruel to me. There was no violence. Oh, I had got in a very short-term violent relationship before that. I was 15 and that's when I first was a victim of domestic violence. But yeah, this guy that I got with, he wasn't abusive, but it was just really chaotic in the way that he was a dealer of like ecstasy, cocaine and stuff. So we were doing a lot of that. It was a lot of going out. I was losing weight, partly because of the drugs, partly intentionally to try and, this has been another theme of mine that I think goes hand in hand with my addiction and my mental health, is the trying to be smaller. I need, so you're like me kind of thing. So I'll feel okay with myself. And yeah, mentally I wasn't good and he wasn't really caring. And yeah, it was loads of stuff went on. We were together a year, so quite a long time for one being so young and quite a new relationship. But he ended up finishing things with me, and I was self-harming really badly. Obviously, I'd been doing loads of drugs, not eating properly. You can, you know, not a good combination. Yeah. And my mum couldn't deal with my moods and my state of mind at home. And then there was a young people's like homeless hostel. It was a good place. It wasn't like really, they were great people. So I moved into there. She couldn't handle me anymore. So I went in there. But it was like, I suppose, like being at school. They were really great support, but I wasn't ready for it. Okay. And I was in such a mess that I ended up getting with a guy. He was a heroin and crack addict. He was a criminal. He was violent. I knew all of that. I actually knew all of that. Right. But yet somehow that appealed to me. I could go into analysing it all, probably various reasons. But yeah, and then that's when I got my first addiction to heroin. Okay.
And we all know where that goes.
Yeah.
It's a whole level of madness with that stuff. So how old was you at the time when you was in that hostel?
18. I just turned 18, yeah.
So tell me what happened next.
So, yeah, that I ended up getting kicked out of there because they gave me chances and I'd been using heroin in the room with him. And so they had no choice but to kick me out. And then I moved into his bedsit with him. He was violent. He was controlling. And to be honest, I wanted to get away from him, but he made it really hard. And there's obviously a lot more awareness around domestic violence now. Yeah. But not so much then. But my mum's always been an amazing support to me, but it's also been really hard for her, obviously. So basically there'd be times when I'd go back to mum's and try and come off heroin. She was always really supportive for me when I needed to do that or wanted to do that. But inevitably I'd always go back to him. It all hand in hand, like that vicious circle of like the drugs and the attachment to, even though it's a really toxic relationship, I'd almost become like that. I'd become part of my addiction as well. Yeah. All related to self-worth stuff possibly and all sorts. But so he ended up going to jail. So that was my get out. That was my get out of jail card. I was like, great, I can get away now. But basically, because we'll be here for hours otherwise, my life then from that age, I went on a methadone script and I did get off the heroin and stopped taking crack. But however, back then, I didn't even know there was such thing as recovery, let alone, I mean, I'd heard of rehabs as, you know, that's what I heard of it then. But that was, to me, famous people went to. I didn't know anything about them, and I didn't know about fellowship or any ways of recovery. So to me, in my area, being clean was just not taking crack and heroin. So quite soon I'd, physically got better, and that was it. I was off out to the clubs again and drinking and recreational. But because obviously what I've learned since about the disease of addiction is that anything would then send me back. So inevitably I would do recreational using for a while, but it would always go back to crack and heroin.
Right.
And then my life basically all throughout my 20s, a little bit of my early 30s, was just a massive pattern of violent, toxic relationships, using relationships, trying to step away, but not having any support there because I didn't really know about any support. And my poor mum just there constantly trying to help me.
Yeah, picking up the pieces. Yeah. Trying to pick up the pieces.
I did have jobs on and off, never for very long. But yeah, that was in my life. It was a big pattern of these similar relationships and similar using and trying to stop, but not for long.
Okay, so I think it sounds like the issue to me was really self-esteem and self-worth.
Agreed. Yeah. Really.
So what was the moment when Katie said, enough?
Well, with me, I didn't quite get to that moment because it happened for me. So
right, okay.
It was actually my daughter, because I had a daughter in my addiction, and I was in yet another awful relationship, victim of domestic violence, and it was quite visual. I was turning up to pick her up from school. I had black eyes. It was quite obvious that I wasn't in a good place. I was late, stuff like that.
Yeah.
So social services got involved. But actually, we were in a meeting one day with the school and social services, and my daughter's social worker said, "Have you ever thought about rehab?" And I didn't even hesitate. I mean, I didn't expect that question. I thought they were going to maybe offer me a refuge, support for going to a refuge, because I'd done that once before. And although it was really unexpected, and I just said, yeah. So I didn't I was very lucky. I was very fortunate compared to some people that make that decision on their own and then fight tooth and nail to get there. It was handed to me, and I'm so grateful for that. Because I don't know if I'd have... I'm glad now. I mean, we're talking 8 years ago. There's even in that relatively short space of time, there's a lot more awareness now, especially thanks to people like you and places like your organisation. But back then I hadn't really still heard of it, of treatment and, like you do today. So I don't know if I would have come to that decision on my own. So I'm so grateful to, social services. And they got me a place. They got me a place here.
Christ, I need to give an honourable mention to social services wherever in Gloucester, because, I know you said something a moment ago about, most people having to work hard to get a place like this, when actually I think you did. Everything that you'd been through got you to that point where somebody said, no, she needs that intervention now, and not having to jump through the hoops and all the hurdles that you've got to do to get a place like this when it's, state funded. So,
But I just do massively appreciate that. And I like to acknowledge it, because obviously since going to treatment, I heard of so many people's stories. Where they really did have to fight. And and
it's funny, I was doing a group yesterday. I was doing a group about parenting. We've got, funnily enough, in rehab today, we've got more women than men.
Wow. Oh, yeah. That's unusual, isn't it?
It's crazy. So there's 15 women, 16 women and 12 men. Now, it's never like that.
I know,
It's never like that. Yeah. So we've got a lot of parenting stuff going on. And so yesterday we've had a load of family questionnaires come back from different families talking about the impact of their addiction. So I've just been, looking at all these stuff and listening and thinking, God, addiction really smashes up people's ability to parent their children properly. Some of the choices that they made, the selfishness, and then obviously some of the things that they've been through as a result of their addiction. So I took a group yesterday and was just kind of talking about addiction itself, and certainly the amount of women how challenging that it is for women just to get a place like this, because most men come here and they come here through choice, but most women, it's not really they've had to get to a point, or they're forced via prison, social services. Most women don't get the same choices as men, so it's really good to hear that social services have done so well for you. And we definitely. And then sometimes with social services, they get such a bad reputation for some of the mistakes that they make, but there's so much good work that goes on with them. Do you know what I mean?
There really is. And you do hear a lot of the bad stuff. And that is why I always tell people how, like, for me, my daughter's social worker, obviously my daughter was her primary concern, but she cared about me. And even back then, when my self-worth is so on the floor, I realised this thing she said to me. So, I mean, I was very lucky. And and I'm very grateful for that. And it's like you said, with women, another reason why it can be harder for them to be able to come to treatment is because generally they've got the children living with them. So then if they've got nobody they can't come. And that's another reason why I've got a lot of gratitude, and I'm very fortunate, because my mum very kindly took on the care of my daughter so I could come to treatment.
God bless her. Yeah. Honourable shout out to Katie's mum. Please. So tell me, when you arrived in Broadway, did you come twice or just once?
No, just once. So I did have a choice in where I was going to do treatment. So initially I wanted to be close to Gloucester.
Yeah.
So that's why we decided on the Nelson Trust but they didn't have, I don't know now, it might have changed, but they didn't have a detox unit. I was told, you're going to Weston-super-Mare, you're going to do your detox in Broadway Lodge. And didn't know anything about you guys. I'm so glad, though. I'm really glad that it worked out how it did. And I got that opportunity to, only 2 weeks. But when I look back, it's crazy. It's like, it was so much longer.
I remember you so well. Honestly, I remember you so well. I was just like, wow, this young, precocious, and I would say attractive person coming in. And we always worry about that when we get, it's just a rehab theme, because we think, oh no, what's going to happen? Because it then creates a dynamic. But yeah, you were fantastic. Tell me about your experience.
So I remember, like, throughout treatment, you get so many people that want to leave, that say, I want, it's a big thing. And people that do leave. Yeah. I never wanted to leave. Like, I remember just getting here, and I got the train, actually. I got the train. So I got here, and it was just like such a relief, like a feeling of relief.
Yeah.
I didn't know what to expect. And I come from quite a chaotic lifestyle, straight from that. And I was just so relieved. And now looking back, again, in hindsight, I've been able to, like, learn and think. And I now know that it was the one place I think I've probably maybe ever, or for a long time, felt safe. And that safety, that is what I needed that.
Yeah, 100%.
Didn't know at the time. But I just... obviously, doing a withdrawal is never pleasant, but I kind of just got on with it. Yeah. And I kind of threw myself in to life here. Yeah. Very, very routined. I needed that.
Structure.
Very structured.
Absolutely.
But you know what? Because I'd never really had that in my life. We weren't a very structured, routine family growing up.
Yeah.
Struggle with it a little bit now still, with my parenting and stuff. But I thrived off it, because that's what it's like when you're in addiction. You are like a child, really, and I needed that, and I thought that was brilliant, because it just kept me focused throughout my time here. And I remember picking up a book and reading about Narcotics Anonymous, 12-step, the groups we had. It was, it was a caring environment. It was gentle.
Well, the first thing I'd like to just say to you is just I'm really pleased that you said about safety, because that's the one thing that, in order for this to work, people need to feel safe and secure. You know, most people have come from some kind of dysfunction, whether it's actually the chaos and the dysfunction of addiction, or the chaos and the dysfunction of addiction for themselves and their mindset, and that, the obsession to use and all the chaos that brings. So I think, it's important that we let people know that coming here, the one thing that you do get is it's safe, it's secure, and there's a structure, and it's followed, and everybody follows it, and that's how it works. That's how we keep this place working. Yeah.
But I will say, as much as I say it's a gentle and safe, it's strict, but it's like that firm but fair saying that's the way it is, and I love that. And and I just got on with it. I just, and I could see people wanting to leave, and people,
It's mad, isn't it?
I know. I never got that. I suppose I was ready, and who knows? Everyone's different, but I was ready, and I wanted to learn, and I found things interesting, like the groups, and although I found it hard to kind of get into and open up completely because it was completely new to me, I was interested in like the workshops and all you offer. Yeah, I wanted to get what I could out.
So when you arrived here, you'd had enough.
Yeah. Definitely.
You'd had enough. You arrived prime and ready.
Yeah.
And, and let me just say to everybody, Katie only spent 2 weeks. She did a 2-week detox with us, and then went off to Nelson Trust in Gloucester. And, so it doesn't matter whether obviously we would have liked to have kept her for all of the 12 weeks, but her treatment was funded for 2 weeks here when she went somewhere else. But the fact is that you'd had enough.
Yeah.
And you was ready. And that's the most important thing. As Katie said, the people come here, and you see it all the time. Like people, the hell that they were in before they got here, as soon as they get here, that all changes. And it's almost like, I want to leave. I'm like, what is the matter with you? Where was the desperation that you had on the phone calling us to get in? Seems to have replaced with a desperation to get out. And sometimes, obviously with the love and compassion that we have here, we will try to help people to change their mind. And then sometimes it's just, okay, enough, go. So tell me, Nelson Trust, got through there, done your treatment there. What happened next?
So for me, I did end up getting treatment looped. Okay. So I went with a view to doing my 6 months at Nelson, but I actually ended up doing 3 there, and then I got treatment looped back to Western. So that's how I ended up back in Western.
Cool.
So I did the remainder of my treatment in a very different treatment centre to the one I was in Nelson, but both places, like, I learned so much from, because they were different. And I find that really valuable, because I kind of had the best of both, because you've got 12-step, and then you've got
therapeutic.
What's it called? What do they call it?
Self-empowerment.
That's the one. Thank you.
Yeah.
But so I did complete my treatment. I think that's probably the only thing at that point that I'd ever completed in life. I completed it. And then I didn't, at the end of it, I've heard of a couple of people having more time, and I was like, oh, can I stay a bit longer? Because obviously I felt safe, and I felt it was scary to leave. It was after 6 months, but I did leave, and I ended up resettling in Western.
Nice.
And I threw myself into recovery. I was regularly going back to Gloucester to visit my daughter and my mum. So I was heavily involved in the fellowship.
I used to worry about you keep going back then.
I think a lot of people did.
I did. Yeah, I'm not going to lie. I mean, although it was only 2 weeks with us, obviously we have connected friends, and I just used to worry about Wasn't sure. Obviously, I was worried about the whole relationship situation and whether you was going to get yourself into something unhealthy so quickly, and then going back to Gloucester and how dangerous it was for you to keep going back and stuff, and just that free floating anxiety about somebody's future life and prospects. So what happened?
So yeah, I continued with the fellowship. I got voluntary work quite soon. There was a course here actually that's not on anymore, but I did, I think it was 12 weeks actually. So I committed to a 12-week course, which was actually Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday and Friday. So it's kind of like a mini treatment thing. It was like a 12-step sort of course for information about it all and like group therapy. So yeah, it was a little bit like treatment outside treatment. So I did that for 12 weeks. I kind of just tried anything really. I wanted to keep busy. I knew how important it was to keep busy and keep that structure. So I continued doing that for myself, as well as like going back to Gloucester. So I was really busy, but I was working on myself too. I was trying to get that balance between being busy and actually sitting with yourself. But yeah, so that continued for a while. I did have a short relapse. That is part of my story. I think I'd gotten to just under 2 years clean. I hadn't gone through the steps. I think I'd only completed up to step 3. So I stalled on that. I wished I hadn't, but that's yeah. So, but it was I quite quickly, when I relapsed, I quite quickly realised that what did I think this was going to, like, it's not the same. Once you have a taste of recovery, it's like a cliche, like it ruins your using, but it's so true. It wasn't what I expected or wanted. It just didn't work.
Yeah,
it just did not work.
The drugs have stopped working.
Exactly. So quite quickly I came back and really threw myself into recovery this time. Got through my step work, and within let's say within a year and a few months, I'd sponsor another ladies because I'd been through my step work, and I was working at a treatment centre I went through.
So what was you doing there?
I was basically welcoming clients, going through processing their when they arrive, assessments. Is that what it's called? And I was doing admin. I even did a little bit of group work with some of the women in a small, just a few women in the house, and I really enjoyed that. Yeah, I really enjoyed working there actually.
Cool. And then what happened next?
So I ended up having to leave there, which I was so sad about. Basically, they used to have 3 houses over in a small sort of area, which were all part of their treatment centre. And they unfortunately had to downsize to one house. So then quite a lot of staff got let go of. So that was just out of my hands, really. I did get another job. And I started college. I've done 2 years of college since I've been in recovery. Did level 2 and 3 counselling skills, which I thoroughly enjoyed. And then within all that, it was like continuing. I'd do courses as well. I can't do just fellowship. I like to have hobbies and interests and do courses. So I've always like sought out doing sort of any courses that are interesting to me, whether it's learning courses, whether it's creative courses. So I've always done stuff like that as part of my life now. And so within this time, I was continuing to do stuff like that. And then it was time for my daughter to come and live back with me. So that was
And how has that been?
Yeah, it's been hard. It's been hard in some ways because sort of living away from my family and support network, that's been quite tough. I don't drive either, so it feels longer away than it is. But yeah, with her coming back and reintegrating back, that's gone okay. That's actually gone okay. And
cool. How's she getting on at school at the moment?
She's doing amazing now. She really struggled after lockdown, or through lockdown, having just that massive block of time off school, just the disruption and just having no structure. Exactly. Just like no structure whatsoever. It hit her hard. And because my daughter wants to move back to Gloucester, which
does she?
She's been back with me 5 years now. And through that time, there's always been this theme of she doesn't want to be here and she wants to meet. And I suppose she's got a massive attachment to my mum and to Gloucester. And I get it because I do have family and friends there. So, yeah.
How are you feeling about that? Because your life's here, isn't it?
Yeah. It's a tricky one. I said something
Are you going back to Gloucester at some point?
I think I'm probably going to have to, yeah. I say have to, but I said this to my friend and they said that's a bit confusing. Because what I said was, I'm happy here, but I'd also be happy there. What I mean by that is, if I wasn't pushing to leave, I probably wouldn't go. But then, in a way, I look at that like, part of it is fear for me, because it feels a bit like pressure now, because she wants to move and she wants to go to college in Gloucester. And that's not, she's in her last year of school now, so that's quite a short time frame for me
coming.
and moving's a lot. I'm not nervous about being in Gloucester. It's just like the whole sort of moving and
But you've got a load of people around you that you know that you can call upon to help you. So
yeah. I mean, my mum is like my best friend. She's not getting any younger now, bless her. So I'd like to be nearer to her. I'd like to be able to help her and be there for her more. Because sometimes I feel like I'm here and I'm in the best place I am now. Obviously, for all the years I've been around recovery, I get stronger, I'm doing better. And I just feel like my mum's not getting that part of me. She's not reaping the benefits of it.
She's not feeling the benefits of your recovery.
Yeah.
Well, there's one thing, though, she is reaping the benefits of, and that's the peace of mind that she has, that, you know, she's no longer having to worry. Well, she hasn't had to worry about you for a long time now. So, I mean, there's that. But I think you're talking about really the physical benefits of being there and just being with her and going to see her and just hanging out together.
Yeah,
you know?
and just helping her. Yeah, all of that.
Yeah. Oh, bless her.